Okay, here's video number 2 to accompany the worksheet for triangle congruence, also located on Schoology for you guys. After you go through the video, make sure that you work on the you try section. And so I know I've told you guys or given you 2 different ways to kind of set up your proofs here, and we are doing a full proof. I told you that you could go through and make a list, and I know some people have chosen that. And I also told you that you could go through and make a flowchart, and I know some people have chosen that. So I'm actually going to do 2 different kinds. So for the very first example here, I think I'm going to go through and make the list. And then for the second example, I'm going to go ahead and make the bubbles that go with it. Again, these are introductions to triangle congruence proofs. As you move further along, so an integrated 2 and an integrated 3, and then so on and so forth, you will fine-tune and kind of hone your skills with writing proofs. So we're a little more open with these, maybe not quite as strict. So first thing, I'm going to go through, just following my directions. I'm going to state my given information. So my given information is if I have 2 numbers that are the same, then I can say that those 2 line segments are congruent to each other. If I have angles that are the exact same size, because it's like 72 and 72, then I can also say that those 2 are congruent to each other. So I can use numbers or I can use the symbols. In this case, it looks like I have symbols. So I just want to make sure that I follow the symbols that go together. So I am going to color code this since we have that opportunity to do so. And I think I'm going to do my first line segment here. So I see that tick mark and that tick mark. Since those 2 are the exact same tick marks, I know that I can say that those guys are congruent to each other. And now, I didn't do any special work for this. This was just given to me. So again, I'm making my list here. So, given. And now I can just list out everything that was given. All right, so the red line segment would be on the left-hand triangle, AB. They're the exact same size, so I'm going to say that they're congruent to DE. All right, now I'm going to go through and take a look at the next marker that I have. May as well finish my line segments. So I see 2 tick marks here, and I see 2 tick marks here, so I know now that those 2 line segments are congruent to each other. So I've got line segment BC is congruent to line segment EF. All right, and then last but not least, I do also see that I have an angle in the picture. So I see that this little angle there and that angle there are the exact same markers, which means they're congruent to each other. Now, since there's no question about, well, where's angle B? It's not like you have multiple things happening at angle B, so I can just use that single letter to identify it. So I would say angle B is congruent to angle E. Okay, so that's my given information. You'll notice that I have 3 pieces of information. I don't see any vertical angles because it's not like the triangles are up against each other on 2 shared line segments. I definitely don't have reflexive because, again, the 2 triangles have to be connected to each other. But that's okay because I think I have enough information right now. So what I want to do, again, kind of what I did in the previous video, I'm going to start at an empty corner. And I want to try to go across my markings in the exact same order. So I am going to start at A. If I start at A and I go across the red line segment, I want to do the same thing in the other triangle. Start at the empty corner that forces you to go across the red line segment first. Okay, so I have a side that I'm going across. Then, as I finish going through the red line segment, I'm going to land at the pink corner. Okay, same thing. Do I land at the pink corner? Yes, I do. Okay, so that is going to be an angle because it's identified. It's got a marker in it. If it was an empty corner, I wouldn't say it's identified as an angle. Then, as I finish through the pink corner, notice that I'm going across the green line. All right, I'm hoping to go across the green line, which I am. Okay, so those are identified. That is a side. I should go to an empty corner at that point, which I do. And then if I finish my loop, I'm not going across any marked side at all. Finish my loop, not across any marked side at all. Okay, I think I have side angle side as my reason. So I would say side angle side, triangle congruence. And then the last thing I need to do is name the triangles. I'm just going to do it in the order that I went across. I started at A, I went to B, and then I went to C. Same thing for the right-hand triangle. I started at D, I went to E, and then I went to F. Okay, so that's the listing part of this. Let's take a look at the next example. Notice that the next example now, I've got some numbers in there, which is totally fine. We know that we can match numbers up together, but I am going to do a flowchart this time. So it's still the same idea of givens. So if I take out my colored pen again, it looks like I have this line segment of 7, and I see another line segment of 7 over there. So since those are the same two numbers, I know that those guys are congruent to each other. So I'm going to create a flow chart this time. So I'm going to do some bubbles. So I've got line segment AB is going to be congruent to, now you could call it ED or DE, doesn't really matter. So there's my first bubble. Now the reason why these are congruent to each other, well, I didn't do anything to get that information. They showed me that the 7s were congruent, or because I know 7s are the exact same number, I get to say that it is given. Okay, now I think we've got some angles that we need to talk about. So if I go back, let's take a look at the 45 itself. So I'm going to identify the 45, so find the 45 in the other picture. No question about whether or not this angle B could be confused with a different angle B. So I'm just going to call it angle B is congruent to angle E. So that's what goes inside the bubble. I didn't have to do any work for it, so this is given. All right, and I think I have one other thing that's identified for me, which is kind of nice. So I've got this 51, and I realize that I'm color coding. So we know that the blue and the green are different, but I want to get used to having different symbols also. So for my 51, it's going to get a blue with a tick mark. All right, so we know that those two guys are the same. So angle A is congruent to angle D. Put a bubble around that guy, and then I still didn't do any work for it. It was given, which is kind of nice. All right, if I take a look at the picture, before I actually do my flowchart on this, I need to figure out if these guys are even congruent. Now, it's kind of a dead giveaway in the question because I did say prove that these two work. If I say prove, it's going to work. So I think I'm going to start on the left-hand triangle. I'm going to start at an empty corner. Well, the only empty corner I have is C. So if I start at my empty corner, I think I'm going to go to the green corner first. So go to the green corner first. All right, so I'm going to start at the empty corner over here, and I'm going to go to green first. Okay, now we'll go back to my next triangle. The only path I have now is to go across the orange line. And I sure hope this one has the orange line, which it does. It's my only option here. All right, so I stopped at an angle first. I'm now going across the orange line. It's a side. All right, where does this send me? Well, it sends me to the blue corner. I hope this sends me to the blue corner. It does. Good. Okay. By being at the blue corner, now I'm at an angle. And then to finish the loop, I want to go back to where I started, but not crossing over a side length, which I didn't. So that's good. All right. I have ASA in both of the triangles. That is one of my 5. So what I can do now, again, it is a flow chart. So we want to make sure that these bubbles flow down into the next one. What I put on the inside is the name of the triangles. So let's see. I started at C. I went to B, just following my arrows in the triangle, and then I went to A. So we did a triangle, C, B, A. And then think about the other one. I started at F, I went to E and then I went to D. Okay, so F, E, D. All right, that's what goes inside the bubble. It's not given this time though. This was why I went through and traced the triangle. So if I look, it was angle, side, angle. So ASA. So my reason is ASA triangle congruence. Make sure you work on the you try as well.